Today on the channel, we are going to talk about what first pro level lens you should purchase as an up and coming sports photographer. So let's gear up. Hey there you guys, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jerry Lai, and I'm the Director of Photography and Content for a major North American newspaper. I've been fortunate enough to have worked as a photographer and photo editor in the industry for the past 16 years, and I want to help you learn the basics of sports photography. At a certain point, you're going to grow out of your starter lenses and start longing for more. But there's so many choices, so what should you get? I had this debate myself many years ago when I was a student looking for my first big piece of pro kit. Obviously, I ruled out the big glass and their astronomically ridiculous costs. When it came down to it, the choice was narrowed down to these two major prospects: the 7200 f2.8 or the 100 to 400. It doesn't really matter if you use Canon, Sony, or something else. Most manufacturers make some variant of these lenses. Price-wise, these two lenses are more or less a toss-up. Depending on the system you use, the 100 to 400 millimeter lens is generally only a couple $100 more expensive. They look about the same size, they weigh about the same, and they have the same pro-level build quality. So the real choice between buying these lenses comes down to this: are you buying the maximum aperture, or are you buying the convenience of the large range? Let's discuss. If range is what you're looking for, then the 100-400 obviously wins the battle. In certain sports and situations, this lens can even be your only camera and only lens combination. A 70-200 with teleconverters attached does close the gap a little bit. However, you do lose the maximum aperture and you do lose a little bit of focus speed and sharpness. However, as I've repeated numerous times in my earlier videos, there is no free lunch in photography. There has to be some sort of trade-off for this awesome range, and that trade-off in this case is the smaller maximum aperture. Because the 100-400 only has a max aperture of f4.5 up to 135 millimeters and 5.0 up to 200 millimeters, this lens is for the most part going to be relegated to outdoor or daytime use. If low light performance is what you are looking for, then the 70-200 f2.8 becomes the obvious choice. When you're just starting out, you are probably going to be starting out in some poorly lit venues: high school stadiums, gyms, and football fields. In other words, dark. In the industry, we like to joke around and say these are places where light goes to die. Now, the numbers f4.5 and 5.0 might not seem like a big difference from f2.8, but let me show you this photo as an example. Imagine this shot that I took at a football game under the lights. The actual settings for this photo was 1/1600th at f2.8 and 5000 ISO. But if I were to have used a 100-400 lens, I'd have to shoot this at 16,000 ISO. Holy noise, Batman! Additionally, the 70-200 f2.8 is a lens that is compatible with teleconverters. With a 1.4x converter, you now have a range of approximately 100 to 280 millimeters at f4. And if you add a 2x converter, you'd be at 140 to 400 at f5.6. Now, in addition to the aperture hit, the trade-off is you will lose a little bit of autofocus speed and sharpness due to the camera having to compensate through several layers of glass. But all that said, I do believe that the max aperture of f2.8 is going to be more important for most people starting out in sports photography. So I believe that the 70-200 gets a slight edge over the 100-400 for most people due to its versatility. Now, it's important for me to point out that there are alternatives out there that you guys can consider. First up, there are multiple versions of the 70-200. If we're using Canon as an example, they sell a non-IS version for $1,500. You could also get an f4.0 version of the 70-200 for as low as $600. So with both, you are saving a significant amount of money. If you are strictly a sports shooter, I do think that the non-image stabilization version is a great alternative. because there's really no need for you to drop your shutter speed. A second alternative that you can consider is the 28-300. Several manufacturers make some variant of this lens. This is arguably an even more useful range than the 100-400, as you could go one camera, one lens for almost all of your shoots with this combination. However, it does suffer from the same disadvantage as the 100-400 in that it's relegated to an outdoor or daytime lens due to its very narrow maximum aperture. And for my final alternative, I'm going to go to one of the non-Big Three manufacturers. Olympus makes some incredibly compelling lenses. Keep in mind, because of their sensor size, the equivalent focal lengths have to be essentially doubled. They make a 40-150 f2.8 as well as a 12-100 f4.0. That's the equivalent of having an 80-300 f2.8 or a 24-200 f4.0. Those are some truly amazing and shocking ranges in a camera, and that's why I actually own this lens as an alternative. Anyways, to circle back to the original discussion, I believe the 70-200 f2.8 is the most well-rounded lens for most beginning sports photographers. Now, your kit will almost certainly grow and evolve as you level up. You may eventually be on the hunt for a super telephoto to complement this, or a nice wide-angle lens. Or perhaps you discover that most of your shoots end up being outdoors or shot on arena lights, and you could get away with one of the more all-purpose lenses like the 100-400. So the message of this video is the same as all my other videos where I beat down this fact. Photography comes down to your individual situations. What lens is good for you might not be good for someone else. What lens is good for someone else might not be the right fit for you. You'll have to decide what you shoot and what lenses fit your jobs. That said, you definitely can't go wrong with the 70-200 f2.8. It's a lens that has a permanent home in my camera bag. Let me know in the comment section down below if the 70-200 f2.8 was your first pro photography purchase or one that you plan on purchasing. Thanks again for joining me on the show. If you enjoyed the content on this video or found it educational, definitely hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. I come out with new content every 2 to 4 weeks, so you'll definitely also want to hit that notification bell so you can be alerted as to when new content drops. Thanks again for joining me today. I can't wait to see you all again next time. Bye now.